Well, hello. Welcome to episode number 91. This is episode 91 of the No Limits Map to Triathlon podcast. This episode is really quite interesting. I did Ironman Arizona almost a month ago. And when I got back to Calgary a couple weeks later, I had this really interesting email from a volunteer. And so this podcast episode is all about that email. I think you're going to find it super interesting. I know I did. Hope you enjoy it. Hi, I'm Todd Malcolm, and I've been in the sport of triathlon for over 25 years. I'm head coach of a triathlon group you've probably never heard of. We don't train all the time, and we don't have goals to win races. In fact, our motivation is the exact opposite. We train for triathlons in addition to living busy lives with the goal of staying in shape and challenging ourselves in this amazing sport of triathlon. We are triathletes with no limits, and this is your map to triathlon. Today, I have a super volunteer, Stacey, with me on the episode, or on the podcast, and we're going to chat about my most recent Ironman in Arizona and how I came to know Stacey. So let me take you back in time about a month ago. I was at Arizona, and I was doing my 17th Ironman, which is crazy, right? So crazy. And the water was cold and the air temperature was a bit cold. So I decided to wear a lightweight vest and some gloves to keep myself warm. And I made the choice to myself. I said, when I get to transition, if I'm cold, put on the vest and put on the gloves. I was a little bit chilled from the water. I could tell it was a little bit cold outside, so I put it on. And I decided that after I got to, you still there? Sorry, I pushed a button. I shouldn't touch the screen when I'm recording. So once I got warm enough, I made a choice that I would take off my vest and my gloves and then discard it at an aid station. And I did that about 30 minutes into the race. And everything went well. I'm like, oh, it's perfectly smooth. And what was funny is I was totally okay with giving the vest away and losing it. And then about a couple of weeks later, I had an email from Stacey saying, hey, it took some search to find you, but I tracked you down and I have your vest and I have your gloves. What is your mailing address so I can ship it back to you? I'm like, are you kidding me? We need to chat about this. So Stacey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's so cool. I thought this is such a cool story and we need to share this. So I talked about this in a previous podcast. When I was going through the aid station, I had my vest off and I put my gloves in the back pocket of the vest. And then I saw you, and I was handing the vest to you, and I was going pretty fast at the time. And afterwards, you grabbed the vest, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if I held on for like a half a second longer, or you did, I would have been on the ground. But it didn't happen. It was super smooth. And tell me about your experience.
Oh, it started off to be very nerve-wracking for me. It was the first time I was ever volunteering at a race, and I was at the special needs bike station. And not a lot of bikers had come through yet. So it was pretty low key. At first, we just get all the bags ready for when you guys come through on the second round. And then I saw you taking off your vest, and I saw like the guy in front of me, and you were kind of trying to hold it out, and you were trying to get it off and hold it out. But the guy in front of me who was volunteering didn't grab it. And I'm like, oh, I think he wants me to take this. And so I held my arm out, and sure enough, you did. And I took it, and I was so nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make him crash. Or what if I do something wrong and this ruins it for him? And you didn't. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And literally all the volunteers right around me were like, you just got a vest. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And it really loosened up. I knew no one there, and it really loosened up the feeling around us. And we were just so ecstatic, and it just kind of broke the ice for us to kind of figure out, okay, this is what we're here for. We're here to help the athletes when they need us. And that was the first thing. And you were really fast coming through because had to be in the front of the pack because there weren't too many bikers that came through first. And then it just got us going, and we were excited, and we just started cheering for everyone who was going by, and it just got us going, and it was great.
That's so awesome. I mean, I know that I've been in positions before where I know nobody, and you're like, it's so awkward. I don't know what to say to this person. I don't know anybody. And if I could be that person to help you guys break the ice by, throwing some clothing to you, that's awesome. So tell me, what brought you to, because you're not from Arizona, are you?
I am not. I am from Michigan.
Michigan. So what brought you to Arizona?
So one of my really good friends is an athlete, and this was going to be her first full Ironman. And so she was coming to Tempe, and I really wanted to be there for her to see her accomplish this. We talk a lot of times on the phone when she's running or she's biking. And I feel like I've been a part of her journey through this too. And I just wanted to experience it with her. And she had been a captain volunteer in St. George, where she's from, the area she's from. And she was telling me about that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that just sounds so amazing. It's so, in listening to her stories and how inspiring it is to see all the athletes coming through and just everyone involved. And she's like, hey, I think I can get you a volunteer t-shirt. And I'm like, absolutely not. I want to earn my own. And so I had decided when I was going to go to watch her that I wanted to be fully immersed into the experience. And so I got onto the Ironman website and figured out how I could volunteer. Her coach had recommended I volunteer for the bike special needs, so then I could help her when she came through. And so that's what I signed up for. And I wanted to be able to be there to help her at that point, and then to just be part of the whole Ironman experience as much as I could as a volunteer. And so that is what I did. So that's what brought me out there. And it was so inspiring and just so just so touching and moving to see all of the athletes who compete, and they're all shapes and sizes and amputees and blind people and that go through there. They just really amaze me. And then actually really watching the volunteers too was so they stayed out there for hours just cheering on. So it was just a overall complete amazing experience for me, and I was so thankful for it. And I was so thankful to volunteer to be totally immersed into the spirit of what the weekend was all about, and that I was able to be there for my good friend at the special needs station and see her come through and cheer her on. So that was awesome.
How did your friend do during the bike special needs? Were you able to help her?
I was able to help her. I knew her number. I picked that section of bags to stand at, and her coach was running it also. And so I knew her number. So I was trying to and of course they were nowhere near one another. And I think there was almost 2,000 athletes at this event. So she was at the higher end of it, and her coach was at the other end. So and my phone was dying. So this lady who I had no idea standing next to me, I go, oh my gosh, can you take my friend's bib number so you can kind of tell me when she's coming through so I can make sure I'm here for her? And so she totally did. And then I'm like, and if we have a second, I want you to take a picture of us when she's here. So the stranger, so nice of her too, totally did. I saw my friend coming up. I was able to grab her, have her bag, rip it open, be there for her. And it was so good to be able to help her be able to transition and get the fuel and the things that she had packed up for her that she needed, and then to get on her way. And then I made it down to see her coach off as well. So that was awesome.
Wow, fantastic. Now, how long were you out there on the highway volunteering? Because look, I was there racing. We had to do 3 loops, and it got windier and windier and windier. How did you guys maintain your happiness and, able to help people with that strong wind?
It was very windy, and I just went with my volunteer shirt on because for me it was warm there, where other people were thinking. I got there at 7:30 I think it was 7:30 in the morning is when I started, and it was not hard at all once you got going. And once all the athletes were coming by, it was not hard at all. And honestly, once everyone was starting to go on their second loop where they were stopping, it was game on. We were so busy because they holler out from the beginning of what number of athletes coming through. And so everyone's just yelling it down the line. So the right person, so you can just run to that area to grab the bag and be ready for them. And so it was busy. Like you didn't have time to stand around. So you were hopping and you didn't have time to think about, I don't know, you just stay very excited and very busy the whole time.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but as an athlete, when we come to the halfway point, we have these bags there that we can choose to take or not. And I was really looking forward to mine because I lost some nutrition on my bike because the road was so bumpy. And so when you get to the aid station, you just as an athlete, you're hoping it goes so smooth. And the volunteers were like the people there were amazing. They just did such a great job of what's your number? What do you have? Let me help you get it out. And it was just so fantastic. And when you're so tired on a bike, that's what you want is extra people out there who are supporting you and encouraging. You don't even know each other. You don't even know each other, which is part of one of the coolest things is that support between people that just don't know strangers, and go on, have a great race, right? And it's that love of the sport and helping people is what I really enjoy. It's so much fun. Do you have any stories that were kind of that popped up during your time of volunteering that were interesting to share?
I do. As far as the athletes coming through, like you say, you don't know these people, but they come up and you guys are also kind as well. They're constantly saying thank you. And like I say, I think we were all a little nervous, or at least I was a little nervous because I didn't want to mess up or anything. Cause I know people are competing and, and it's a lot on you guys that you guys are going through that day. And everyone is just so kind and so grateful for you. And that's such a warm feeling as well. And you feel like you're really a part of it. A couple of the stories, I guess one on just another volunteer, after I was done working, then we went back so I could kind of watch my friend in different locations. And it was on the run course. One of the locations, there was this big garbage can and an athlete was throwing up in the garbage can. And this volunteer came right away, got the garbage can and is emptying the garbage. And the athletes are like, I am so sorry. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is what I'm here for. And it was just like, oh, wow. People really, they do everything and it doesn't matter. Like it's such a community between the athletes and these volunteers of people, like you say, people who don't know one another, but they're just out there to help support one another for you guys to be able to reach your goal and what you're working for that day. So it was just so inspiring to see both sides of it. And so that was pretty amazing. And then my favorite moment as a volunteer was actually at the end that was not expected for me. I was at the finish line trying to see my friend come in, and it was so packed. And all of a sudden, and it was hard to kind of get up close. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, there's volunteers in at that finish line. And I'm like, I have my volunteer shirt on. I wonder if I could get in there. And so I remembered this podcast I listened to from Simon Sinek about getting the bagel. And so I'm like, I'm going to get in there. And so I went over and I'm like, hey, I need to get in there. And they're like, are you volunteering? I go, no, but my runner's coming in and I need to get in there. So I was able to get into the finish line. And all of a sudden I realized, the volunteers are the ones putting the medals on these athletes when they come across.
Wow.
And so I went up and I'm like, hey, can I get the medal? My athlete's coming in soon. And they gave me the medal. So I was able to put the medal on my friend when she crossed the finish line. And I'll just cherish that forever.
And you know what? She's going to cherish that as well. That's, especially your first Ironman, there's something special about it. And when you know that person who's putting the medal around you, oh my gosh, that's awesome. What a great end to the day, hey?
It was amazing. And in the end, I walked a half a marathon just watching her.
Crazy. That's so cool. So, my question is this, now that you watched one, are you inspired to do anything like
I
active or Ironman or triathlon or?
um I am on my own journey. I don't know if I am inspired to I don't want to say I can't do it, because I think when you watch something like that, you realize you can do what you put your mind to. And is it going to be easy? Probably not, but you can really do it if that's what you want to do. And I've been on my own journey this year myself, thanks to my friend. Um, she bought me an 8K virtual race for Christmas last year. So on January 1st, we walked it. I walked it. I'm not a runner. I walked it, and she ran. And we talked virtually while we were doing it, because she's, of course, in Utah and I'm in Michigan. And we did that on January 1st. And then the next weekend, I'm like, hey, that felt really good. I'm going to get out there and do that again. And so it went on, and before I knew it, January was done. And I'm like, I did an 8K every weekend. So I'm like, you know what?
Hmm.
I'm going to do 52 8Ks this year.
Wow.
And that's what I'm doing. And so I have been on my own journey. And so I will complete 52 8Ks. I've done an 8K every week. So that's what my journey is this year. And I'm going to up it again next year.
That's incredible. That's a great story. I love that.
Thank you.
That's really good. Okay, so another question. When your friend finished, was she happy, and is she going to do another Ironman?
Oh, she was ecstatic. She was pumping her fist, and she absolutely loved it. She did amazing. And I don't know if she's committed to do another one again, only because now she's already like, I'm going to qualify and I'm going to do Boston Marathon next. So she is definitely a goal setter, and she will I have no doubt, and especially living where she lives. I mean, this year, even in St. George, they're having multiple Ironmans there. She definitely will do another one again, even though she hasn't signed up for one yet, but she definitely will, because that's the type of person she is.
So if she qualifies for Boston, would you go cheer on in Boston?
No question asked. Absolutely. And she will qualify for it. And I will be there. I've already told her, I'm like, okay, so I have no doubt she will qualify, and I will meet her in Boston and I will cheer her on there.
I qualified for Boston in 2019, and I raced with a couple of my athletes. And my best friend, who was living in Boston at the time, and I'm from Calgary, he met me there, and he was there at the finish line for me. So it's really a special moment that you guys can share, and it's so cool. What I did too, because I like podcasts. We did a podcast on the steps of Harvard steps. Like, hey, I want to do a podcast in Harvard, so we did that. That was kind of a cool thing for me. So your friend, has she signed up for another Ironman? Are you going to volunteer at that Ironman?
Well, depending on the time, but absolutely. I've already talked about possibly coming out to St. George in May and volunteering at the one that's there. I don't think she's running it, but she might volunteer. So I'm like, oh, I think I could be like a professional volunteer, because I really enjoy this, because I enjoy cheering on other people and just seeing all of them and being around all of the positive and inspiring
Mhm.
people. So absolutely, I would totally volunteer again, and I'm sure I will.
There's a certain type of energy that's created around that weekend of Ironman, isn't there? Like, I know
Oh,
that when I get there, say on a Friday, the transition set up, and you drop off your bike, and there's volunteers helping you there, and you're dropping off your run bags and gear bags, and you can just feel it. And then Saturday, the same thing, Sunday, the race. And then Monday, when you go back there and there is nothing there, I'm not sure if you went there on the Monday or another day where nothing is there. It's so odd where you go, oh man, this is the spot. This is the spot where all this magic happened, and now it's gone. But it's such an interesting idea of, this was here, it was there for a couple of days, and now it's gone. I think it must be similar to, I just thought of this now, like if people were in like a war, and they went through something traumatic with all these people, and then it's gone, they go back to that same spot. I just, because it's such a powerful experience. So if you do go back to St. George for May, I'm racing, so let me know. You can,
yay.
yeah. I'll make sure that I have my vest, and I'll do the handoff to Stacey again.
Yes.
You never know. So yeah, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've seen a lot of, we call them super volunteers, and you can tell because they're so energetic, they're so helpful, and the sport, it needs volunteers to run smoothly, and without the volunteers, we really can't have a race. So it's, as athletes, we're always grateful to have great volunteers. Now you're a seasoned volunteer, so now you know what to do. So the next time you're at an Ironman, hey, this is how you do it. This is how you hold the bags. This is what you do, and how you encourage people. So you can be teaching the next crop of volunteers, which I think is amazing. So that's fantastic.
I would be honored to do that.
So Stacey, thank you very much for being a part of the episode. I just thought this was such a great story that we had to share it so that people could see how athletes and volunteers work together in such a great sport of Ironman. So thank you very much for being part of the episode.
Oh, thank you, Coach Todd. I appreciate it. And your vest will be in the mail.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Hey, are you training for an Ironman or 7.3 this year? Perhaps this is your first or second one. You want some free tips? I've compiled tips from athletes all over the world. I asked them to share their one tip with brand new Ironman athletes. I was overwhelmed with hundreds of responses. I took the most common tips and put them together in a brand new ebook. To grab your free copy, please visit 101trainingtips.com. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to our next podcast together. If you have any questions, please send me a note. You can contact me at Instagram at NoLimitsCoach, Facebook at NoLimitsTry, and my website, NoLimitsTriathlon.com. Happy training, and we'll talk soon.